Have you ever seen a place so beautiful that it is hard to believe it truly exists on Earth? Across the planet, there are landscapes where turquoise waterfalls flow over strange stone terraces. Glowing red lava meets the ocean, white snow forests transform into bizarre shapes, and wild nature still unfolds powerfully across rivers, grasslands, and untouched lands. Some places look as if they came from a dream, with deep blue volcanic lakes hidden among valleys, sand dunes stretching to the horizon, peaceful wetlands covered in reeds, brightly coloured flower fields, and black beaches beneath giant cliffs. These are not imaginary worlds, but real destinations where nature has created landscapes so strange, majestic, and breathtaking that they seem to belong to another planet. Today, we explore the most jaw-dropping places on Earth, where every landscape proves that reality can sometimes be more surreal than imagination itself. On the west coast of Greenland, Ilulissat Ice Fjord looks like a giant river of ice carrying blue and white icebergs toward the ocean every day. The main glacier here can move almost 131 feet each day, so the whole landscape keeps changing even when it looks almost motionless from far away. Every year, this area releases about 11 cubic miles of ice into the sea, geological, making up around 10% of the icebergs from Greenland's inland ice sheet. Icebergs rising more than 328 feet above the water are only the visible part, because the hidden section can reach nearly 2,953 feet deep, like underwater mountains. At the mouth of the fjord, an underwater rock ridge holds back thousands of ice blocks, creating a white ice maze stretching across the sea. So, when ice 250,000 years old glows blue under the midnight sun and the aurora, Ilulissat Ice Fjord leaves viewers stunned because they are watching ancient ice melt right before their eyes. The jaw-dropping beauty of Keukenhof does not begin above the ground, but with 7 million flower bulbs layered beneath the sandy soil. The late-blooming bulbs are placed deepest, April bulbs in the middle, and March bulbs closest to the surface, so each flower layer appears one after another for 8 weeks. All of these bulbs are planted by 40 gardeners by hand over 3 autumn months, because every position shapes the curve of the colours. If the spring temperature changes by only about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, peak bloom can shift by 4 to 5 days. So the beauty here depends heavily on the weather. Since 1949, Keukenhof has not only been a place to admire flowers, but also an outdoor stage where the finest flower varieties are displayed each season. Across 79 acres, more than 800 tulip varieties, 2,500 ancient trees, and 9 miles of paths turn this place into a giant painting shaped by technique, soil, season, and colour. Seven Sisters Cliffs is jaw-dropping because of 3 clear bands of colour. Green grass on top, vertical white chalk cliffs, and the deep blue sea below. This white wall was formed from countless tiny sea organisms compressed for more than 80 million years, so today's beauty began in an ancient ocean. Because the chalk is soft and porous, waves and storms push the cliff edge back by about 12 to 16 inches each year, while revealing fresh, bright chalk underneath. Above, the smooth grass is maintained by grazing sheep. Below, dark grey flint pieces lie scattered at the foot of the cliffs. From the highest edge, nearly 253 feet above the shore, the sharp stone beach and open coastline create a simple but deeply striking view. The contrast between grass, chalk, flint and sea makes Seven Sisters Cliffs a clean, sharp white and blue landscape that is always changing. The milky blue water of Saturnia is not only visually strange, but also comes from a geothermal source rising from underground at about 132 gallons per second. This water stays near 100 degrees Fahrenheit all year, close to human body temperature, so the stone pools still release visible steam on cold days. Over thousands of years, the dense calcium in the water has settled layer by layer, naturally forming rounded limestone steps like natural bathtubs. The cloudy turquoise colour comes from minerals and sulphur gas floating in the water, along with the egg-like smell that spreads around the area. This same mineral-rich water was used by the Romans more than 2,000 years ago to clean wounds and recover their bodies after long marches. Against the grassland and low hills of Tuscany, steam covering the stone pools makes Saturnia look like an ancient hot spring staircase shaped by heat, water and minerals. The pink surface of Las Salinas de Torrevieja is not artificial colour, but a sign of a salt lake concentrated under strong sunlight. The water here contains about 47 ounces of salt per gallon, almost 10 times more than normal seawater, so most fish and aquatic plants cannot survive. In this harsh, salty environment, microalgae and ancient bacteria create red pigment. The hotter the weather gets and the more water evaporates, the brighter the lake becomes. From that algae source, tiny brine shrimp feed on it and carry the pink colour in their bodies, becoming the food that gives flamingos their colour. The lake is only about 3 feet deep, so the dense water lies flat like a mirror while the shore is covered with white salt crystals like snow. Flamingos almost blend into the candy-coloured lake, and the human body can float on the dense water, making Las Salinas de Torrevieja an unreal landscape shaped by salt, sunlight and tiny life. The rusting shipwreck on white pebbles turns Nevilla Beach into an unusual shore, where a maritime accident created the most famous image of this place. Three sides of the beach are locked by limestone cliffs rising up to 656 feet, making it feel like a dead-end rock canyon that can only be reached from the sea. The milky blue water appears because waves grind limestone into countless tiny calcium particles, making the sea reflect sunlight very strongly. Before 1980, this was only a narrow, rocky cove, but the stranded ship trapped pebbles carried by the currents and slowly made the beach wider. White cliffs, bright pebbles, blue water, and the brown, rusting ship frame create four contrasting layers of colour, like a cinematic frame in real life. From the high cliff, boats can look as if they are floating above the glowing sea, helping Navajo Beach become a famous filming location in Descendants of the Sun. Rising from the flat sand plains of the Sahara, the Enedi Plateau in Chad looks like a giant sandstone fortress forgotten in a sea of sand. This rock mass spreads across about 11,600 square miles, large enough to feel like a mini continent standing alone in the desert. On its caves and cliffs, thousands of carvings stretching across 7,000 years record giraffes, cattle, camels, and human life. So, over millions of years, wind, water, and sand ground into the sandstone, carving deep valleys, upright stone pillars, and giant arches stretching across the sky. The canyons block part of the sunlight and hold water all year, creating rare pockets of life in the dry land. Although the Sahara receives less than 2 inches of rain each year, Enedi can catch 6 to 10 inches, while a 72-degree Fahrenheit temperature swing keeps cracking the rocks like evidence of a Sahara that was once green. On certain days in Nazaré, Portugal's peaceful fishing village suddenly turns into an arena for waves as tall as an 8 to 10-story building. Just offshore, an underwater canyon about 16,400 feet deep and more than 124 miles long works like a giant funnel beneath the Atlantic Ocean. When deep ocean swells rush into this canyon, their energy is compressed, accelerated, and thrown upward near the shore within seconds. Waves here do not hit the coast from only one direction, because water bouncing back from the cliff crashes sideways into the main wave, creating a triangular water peak 79 to 98 feet high. These waves are not born from local storms, but from hidden energy created by winter superstorms in the North Atlantic, travelling hundreds to thousands of miles before exploding on this coast. Behind that violent scene is the local tradition of women wearing 7 layers of skirts, using them to cover their heads and shoulders while waiting for loved ones in the winter sea wind. In a valley almost 6,890 feet high, Ushguli appears with grey stone towers among snowy mountains, like an ancient fortress still remaining in the modern world. At this height, the air is thinner. Winter lasts 6 months, and snow can reach 16 feet, making this place feel almost cut off from the outside world. Above it are glaciers and a mountain peak rising over 17,060 feet. So summer lasts only 2 to 3 months before the ground is covered by snow again. The old houses and watchtowers were built from local mountain stone, giving them a colour that almost blends into the mountainside from far away. The stone towers, standing 66 to 82 feet tall, have sharp roofs and sloped walls, creating an unusual shape while helping reduce the pressure of snow. Among muddy stone paths, old houses, livestock, and a slow way of life, Ushguli feels like a piece of the medieval world still remaining in the modern world. Beneath the emerald water of Lake Bled lies a rare contrast. The lake was shaped by an ancient glacier, but is warmed by geothermal springs. Because of this, inside a cold mountain setting, the summer water can still reach 79 degrees Fahrenheit, even though the lake is only about 1 mile long and nearly 97 feet deep. The stone island in the middle is a limestone mass left behind after the Ice Age, making the whole scene look like a small fairy tale painting. Along the shore, a cliff about 427 feet high holds an ancient castle, first recorded in 1011, adding historical depth to the clear lake. To reach the island, visitors take traditional flat-bottomed wooden boats, limited to 23 in number, then climb a stone staircase with 99 steps. When autumn mist lies close to the water and winter can freeze the entire lake surface, Lake Bled feels like a real fairy tale inside the modern world. Twice a day, the Sundarban seems to be swallowed by the ocean and returned again, revealing the world's largest continuous mangrove forest between India and Bangladesh. Although the soil and water are extremely salty, the trees survive because their roots block 70 to 90% of the salt, while the rest is pushed into the leaves and released. Inside is a tangled network of rivers, tidal creeks, and muddy swamps, where movement can almost only happen on the water. Because the mud lacks oxygen, the roots must grow upward like millions of sharp stakes, forming a natural wall that is hard to cross by land. This is also the only mangrove forest on Earth with wild tigers, where Bengal tigers can swim across many miles of water to hunt in the mud. Because tigers usually attack from behind, forest workers must wear masks on the backs of their heads to confuse them. But many still die, leaving widows rejected by society. On the edge of Ato in southeast Bali, the tree houses do not stand inside a jungle but hang dangerously on the cliff edge, parasitically clinging to old tree roots beside the deep drop without any concrete foundations. The small wooden staircase leading up to the house makes the scene both beautiful and uneasy, because every step stands between a wide ocean view and the empty space directly below. Now, building homes at this towering height is not only for watching the sunrise, but also connects to a local belief in being closer to the gods and separated from the silent underworld beneath the sea. Looking down into the deep abyss, the ocean seems torn open by giant sharp rocks rising from the bottom, just like the fangs of an ancient sea monster. The border between land and sea here is not a gentle sandy beach, but a sharp limestone wall dropping almost vertically into the water, making humans feel small before nature. On that cliff edge, the true owners are bold wild monkeys, always ready to snatch phones, sunglasses, or food from any careless visitor. Blackness covers Rainisfiara like a scar of fire and ice, where volcanic pebbles, ash and rock completely replace tropical white sand. On that cold shoreline, layered hexagonal basalt columns rise like a giant pipe organ, turning cooled magma into a geological wonder. This unbelievably regular shape goes beyond nature, inspiring the unique architectural style of all Iceland. Offshore, sharp black rocks rise from the sea, and legend says they are giant trolls turned to stone under the sunlight. Atlantic waves keep cutting into the black cliffs, forming silent arched caves that contrast with white sea foam and howling wind. Rainisfjara looks beautiful, like the end of the world, but it is also one of the most dangerous beaches on Earth, where sneaker waves can strike suddenly and leave visitors with almost no time to react. The black stone of Cologne Cathedral is not a burn mark, but the trace of acid rain and industrial soot covering pale grey stone for more than 1 century. The construction began in 1248 and took 632 years to complete, so each pointed tower carries the labour of many generations. After it was completed in 1880, its height of about 516 feet once made it the tallest man-made structure in the world for 4 years. The giant facade is not only decorative, thousands of pointed arches, openings, and windows help break up the wind around the stone mass. Inside, the stone structure of about 300,000 tonnes creates an unusually light illusion, because columns 141 feet high pull the vaulted ceiling upward as if it is floating. With more than 107,000 square feet of stained glass and a precious relic chest inside, Cologne Cathedral feels like a black Gothic treasure still standing in the middle of a modern city. Between black volcanic rock and green moss, Thingvellir looks like an open cut in the ground, where the boundary between 2 continents appears right before your eyes. Beneath this place, the North American and Eurasian plates are still moving apart by about 1 inch each year, making the gap almost 8 feet wider after 1 century. Most of this fault line lies deep under the Atlantic Ocean, so being able to walk through a crack rising on land makes this place extremely rare. Melted ice seeps through volcanic rock for 30 to 100 years, leaving the water so clear that underwater visibility reaches more than 328 feet. Above the ground, waterfalls drop across ancient rock, while basalt walls once helped ancient people hold an outdoor parliament from 930 AD. This mix of geology, clear water, rock waterfalls, history, and a Game of Thrones filming backdrop makes Thingvellir feel real, yet almost like a movie scene outside ordinary life. Yangshuo, China. Rising from an ancient seabed, more than 20,000 limestone peaks shoot vertically into the sky at heights of 328 to 984 feet, creating a surreal landscape that feels beyond reality. Under the yellow glow of dusk, fishermen in palm leaf raincoats release cormorants onto the dark river, reviving a primitive and mesmerising tradition that has survived for over 1,300 years. At the foot of the cliffs, ancient houses with grey roofs and white walls quietly disappear into the drifting mist, blending into the mountains like soft brushstrokes in a Chinese painting. Beneath the peaceful scenery lies a hidden underground world stretching 62 miles, filled with giant glowing stalactites sparkling like an alien city beneath the earth. Floating silently on a small bamboo raft beneath the bright Milky Way, travellers feel the noise of the modern world fade away, leaving only stillness, freedom, and the vast beauty of nature. Mývatn, Iceland. This otherworldly landscape was born about 2,300 years ago, when lava as hot as 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit surged across wetlands and exploded into countless pseudo-craters. So unusual is the terrain that astronauts trained here in the late 1960s while preparing for journeys to the moon. Rising from the dark ground are black basalt formations up to 66 feet high, their twisted shapes resembling giant stone creatures frozen in time. Beneath the quiet surface of this 14 square mile lake, the Earth is still slowly pulling apart along a tectonic rift that widens by about 1 inch each year. Hidden in the shallow water is one of Iceland's strangest sights, rare green algae spheres that roll freely across the lake floor like living marbles. Yet among steam vents, volcanic rock, and frozen winters, geothermal groundwater still fills natural pools between 97 and 104 degrees Fahrenheit, making Mývatn feel like a place where ice and fire share the same world. Rubjerg Knud, Denmark. A fierce confrontation between human construction and nature is taking place on a desolate cliff in northern Europe. To save the lighthouse from collapsing, it was dragged 230 feet inland during a historic operation in 2019. Around the tower, accumulated sand has formed a giant dune rising about 295 feet above sea level. Below it, the North Sea keeps eroding 5 to 7 feet of coast each year, causing the cliff to collapse piece by piece. The dune itself behaves almost like a living thing, creeping 30 feet inland every year under the force of strong winds. This constant movement changes the landscape week by week, making no two photographs of Rubjerg Knud ever look exactly the same. Singing sand dunes of Altan Emel, Kazakhstan. Standing out among grey rocky mountains and dry steppe, this massive golden dune rises alone like a strange masterpiece of nature. Local legends once linked its eerie sound to buried armies and restless spirits, adding a mythical shadow to the lonely sandmass. The haunting roar is actually created by billions of dry quartz grains rubbing together, producing a low acoustic wave between 65 and 105 hertz that can vibrate through the chest. Although strong winds constantly move through the valley, this nearly 2-mile long dune remains strangely stable, held in balance by surrounding landforms and airflow. When the friction peaks, the dune can release a roar up to 105 decibels, as loud as standing near a powerful engine. Yet the voice disappears after rain, because wet grains lose the dry friction needed to make this surreal desert wonder sing. Lake Garda, Italy. Born from a powerful Ice Age rift, this vast lake covers 143 square miles and drops 1,135 feet deep, creating an overwhelming natural masterpiece. Scenery is a dramatic meeting between narrow northern waters in deep navy blue and the bright southern bay glowing in turquoise light. Surrounded by cold, snowy mountains, a gentle climate keeps the area 7 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer, feeding green palms and warm springs hidden beneath the lake. Along the steep limestone cliffs, dark tunnels carved by human hands follow the water's edge, opening a breathtaking travel route between rock and lake. When warm winds rush in, the emerald surface turns into a grand stage where thousands of white sails race through the majestic landscape. German Channel Palau. Opened by explosives in 1909. German Channel is a man-made cut over 3,280 feet long through ancient coral reefs, first created as a shortcut for mineral ships. From that damaged mark, the oceans slowly turned this channel into a symbol of recovery, where a wound made by human greed became a rich marine ecosystem. Palau also became the first country in the world to create a shark sanctuary in 2009, banning shark hunting and finning to protect these important ocean predators. From above, the water suddenly changes from bright turquoise to dark blue, like a clear border between shallow coral reefs and deep water. Beneath that surface, giant manta rays with wingspans of nearly 20 feet often glide through cleaning stations, where small fish remove parasites from their bodies like a strange ocean ritual. Jurgati Trinity Church, Georgia. Resting alone on a windy cliff at 7,120 feet, this ancient stone church reveals a breathtaking beauty surrounded by the pure mountain air of the Caucasus. On misty afternoons, rays of sunlight break through heavy, dark clouds and shine directly onto the grey roof, making the lonely sanctuary appear almost heavenly above the valley. Behind that dramatic landscape rises a massive, extinct volcano buried beneath eternal ice, with its 16,581 foot snowy peak glowing brilliantly under the sunlight. Inside the church, narrow stone openings allow soft light to fall across ancient fading frescoes, creating a quiet contrast between darkness, faith, and time. When night fully covers the mountains, the untouched sky transforms into a glowing river of stars, stretching above the solitary bell tower in complete silence. Gullfoss, Iceland, creating the illusion of the earth tearing open to swallow a river. This majestic waterfall pours up to 36,984 gallons of water per second into a mist-filled gorge. The canyon receiving the cascade stretches about 8,202 feet long, yet it is so narrow and steep that its lower walls often stay hidden in shadow and spray. The river does not fall in one straight drop, but breaks across two dramatic steps of 36 feet and 69 feet before vanishing into the ancient glacial scar below. Moisture rising from the abyss turns the air into a natural prism, often casting brilliant double rainbows above the roaring white water. This wonder was once almost turned into a hydroelectric project, but its wild beauty survived, remaining one of Iceland's most unreal scenes that no machine could ever replace. Old Man of Storr, Scotland. Rising from the wild highlands, this 164-foot basalt pillar is the remnant of a vast ancient landslide shaped by lava layers and gravity over millions of years. When fog moves through the cracks at sunset, shadows on the rough rock can make the pillar look like the face of an old giant staring out toward the sea. Its leaning shape feels as if it is frozen at the moment before the collapse. Sha'ambidas, while stacked layers of ancient lava remain visible across its weathered surface. Though it looks solid from far away, the rock is fractured and unstable enough that the first recorded climb was not completed until 1955. With strong winds sweeping across the cliffside and mist swallowing the green slopes below, the whole landscape feels like a surreal world, still shifting between stone, sky, and sea. Dalmatian coast, Croatia. Formed by a massive tectonic collision, this 497-mile coastline becomes a natural masterpiece where silver grey limestone cliffs rise above the deep blue Adriatic Sea. The most cinematic moment comes at twilight when dry cliffs catch the last sunlight and glow peach pink against a sea slowly turning deep purple. Driving along winding mountain roads near the edge, travellers feel breathless between the sheer cliff on one side and the endless turquoise sea on the other. Inside the old coastal towns, limestone streets worn smooth by centuries of footsteps shine under night lights like ribbons of polished marble. In a tiny hidden bay, with only waves crunching against the pebble shore, travellers find a luxurious silence that washes away the dust and noise of the city. Port Campbell National Park, Australia. Perched at the edge of the world, these sheer limestone cliffs rise 148 to 164 feet above the vast, deep blue ocean. At twilight, the landscape turns into a surreal, cinematic masterpiece when sunset makes the rocks glow like peach pink torches in the open sea. Even under the brilliant evening light, sharp winds from the Antarctic ice sheet wrap the coast in an overwhelming, bone-chilling cold. Mixed with the wind is the thunderous roar of giant waves crashing into the cliffs, lifting a hazy and mystical curtain of mist. When darkness swallows the ocean, the Milky Way blooms above, embracing the proud, solitary rocks sleeping beneath the untouched night sky. Lake Tahoe, United States. Straddling the border of two states, this vast water basin is a 2 million-year-old geological relic with a bottom plunging more than 1,640 feet into darkness. Beneath the calm shoreline, gentle shallows can quickly give way to a steep underwater drop, creating the illusion of an endless blue abyss. Even during winters near -4 degrees Fahrenheit, the enormous volume of water keeps the lake from freezing, allowing cold mist to drift across the surface instead. The thin mountain air removes about 330 million gallons of water through evaporation every day, yet the lake remains one of the largest alpine lakes in North America. Surrounding granite cliffs appear grey for most of the day, but at twilight they glow with pink and orange tones reflected across the deep blue water. As evening settles over the mountains, mist, light and water blend together, making Lake Tahoe feel less like a lake and more like a dream suspended between sky and stone. Réunion Island, France. Rising proudly from the deep sea, this geological masterpiece is the summit of a giant volcano, reaching 10,072 feet high, still pouring glowing red lava into the ocean. Hidden in the south is a breathtaking volcanic desert, where dense forests suddenly disappear and smoking cracked lava fields turn the landscape orange-red like the surface of Mars. At sunrise, thousands of sharp mountain ridges rise through a pure white sea of clouds, looking like giant green dragon spines floating in the sky. From the dark, vertical cliffs, countless waterfalls roar down from heights of 2,297 feet, breaking into huge curtains of mist beneath the tropical wind. Along the west coast, calm turquoise lagoons protected by coral reefs stand in dramatic contrast to the giant dark waves crashing endlessly beyond the barrier. Lucerne, Switzerland. Like a fairy tale painting, this city is embraced by a 702-foot deep glacial lake and majestic limestone mountains rising 6,890 feet, glowing under an unusually warm microclimate. The most romantic highlight is gliding on a classic steamship, letting your soul drift as evening light touches the snowy peaks and dyes the whole space in magnificent shades of pink. Across the peaceful crystal clear water, flocks of pure white swans swim slowly, adding a poetic beauty that captures every game. On windless days, the transparent lake becomes a giant magical mirror, reflecting the Alps so sharply that the line between reality and illusion begins to fade. That scene becomes even more mysterious when autumn mist covers the fish-scale rooftops, revealing majestic Gothic spires among thousands of blazing red geranium balconies. Katmai National Park, USA. Completely isolated from the modern world, this pristine land reveals overwhelming beauty, where fiery volcanic cliffs stand beside deep blue bands of ancient Aurora. This natural canvas becomes even more breathtaking in autumn when moss carpets turn deep crimson beneath a surreal night sky filled with sparkling auroras. Hidden beneath massive ice, natural currents silently carve hollow caves that reflect turquoise light like a crystal palace. Through the rainbow mist of a white waterfall, majestic bears weighing 1,000 pounds leap into the sunlight to catch salmon. When evening glow dyes the river honey gold, the image of a wild brown bear sitting silently in the water brings a deep feeling of peace and wonder. Berchtesgaden National Park, Germany. Deep inside the cold and steep Alps, this place opens like a natural stone fortress, where huge limestone cliffs rise straight into the sky and make the whole landscape feel wild and almost unreal. This nearly unreachable terrain once made the highest mountain area here a fortified refuge for the elite of an infamous dictatorship during World War II. When thick clouds and mist pour down from the cliffs, the valley below seems hidden from the outside world, turning the forest and lakes into a cold, isolated, and mysterious space. Since 1978, this park has followed the idea of letting nature manage itself. So fallen trees, dead animals, and natural decay remain part of the wildlife cycle. Ancient Ice Age forces shaped its deep valleys and clear lakes, while the land rises from about 2,000 feet to more than 8,900 feet in a short distance, making the scenery feel overwhelming. Playa de Gulpayuri, Spain. Nestled among green meadows more than 328 feet from the open sea, this surreal beach is actually a limestone sinkhole with no visible coastline at all. Standing on the grass, visitors can hear waves and foam echoing from beneath the ground, as if the ocean were hidden below their feet. Seawater reaches the beach through underground tunnels carved into the limestone over millions of years, connecting this tiny pool to the distant coast. Because the water must travel through a maze of dark passages, the tides here always arrive slightly later than those of the ocean outside. Even during 95-degree Fahrenheit summer days, the water remains around 59 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit after flowing through cool underground caves. The result is a place that looks impossible at first glance, where a real beach rises and falls, with the sea, despite being hidden in the middle of the land. Spiti Valley, India. Hidden in the giant Himalayas, this valley appears like a rusty cold desert, where icy winds and time have carved the land into bare mountains that look like Mars. The roads leading here are only narrow stone edges along deep cliffs, while many settlements still exist above 14,400 feet, showing how humans survive in an almost unforgiving environment. The climate in Spiti is brutal, with winter dropping to minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit and freezing every stream, while summer at 86 degrees Fahrenheit can still burn skin because UV rays pass through the thin air. To survive snowstorms and extreme cold, people press earth, stone and mud into walls nearly 3 feet thick, turning each house into a warm shell in the high mountains. In this dry land, white monasteries with red roofs still cling to cliff edges like silent fortresses, preserving Tibetan Buddhist culture in a world that feels almost cut off from the rest of Earth. Petrified Forest National Park, USA. In the dry desert, Petrified Forest looks like a graveyard of time where trees 225 million years old still keep the shape of rotten wood but have turned into cold, hard quartz stone. Facing the risk of losing them, the United States passed the Antiquities Act in 1906 to protect these petrified logs from human greed. In the late 19th century, their glittering beauty was heavily exploited, especially after railroads in the 1880s helped people carry away many stone logs for sale. Although they look like ordinary wood, they are 3 times heavier than real wood, and their quartz-like hardness makes them almost impossible to cut with a normal steel saw. Inside the rough outer surface are bands of red, yellow, emerald and black, shining under the desert sun like giant gemstones left behind from prehistoric time. Pasu Konaz, Pakistan. In the freezing Karakoram, sharp stone peaks rise like giant fangs tearing into the sky, like a massive geological scar lifted by violent movements of Earth's crust around 50 million years ago. To see this fierce beauty up close, visitors must cross fragile hanging bridges where loose wooden planks shake above a fast, muddy river below. Below these sky-piercing mountains was once a dangerous part of the ancient Silk Road, where many trading caravans faced snowstorms, icefalls, and deep cliffs. The modern road through this area is also tense because it is cut into steep mountain slopes and can still be buried by sudden rockfalls. This valley is never truly quiet because the sound of ice breaking behind the peaks often rolls down like thunder, making the landscape feel both majestic and frightening. Lake Geneva, Geneva, Switzerland. Stretching 45 miles like a giant sapphire scar, this freshwater basin was carved by ancient glaciers that scraped deep into the land tens of thousands of years ago. Near the shore, the water can shift from emerald green to cold grey blue, revealing how quickly the lake floor drops into darker depth. Hidden beneath that beauty is a depth of 1,017 feet, and in the year 563, a massive rock slide triggered a freshwater tsunami that sent waves up to 26 feet across the lake. The lake can also rise and fall with wind and air pressure, creating a slow pulsing motion that makes the water feel almost alive between the mountains and in winter, storms and frozen spray can coat the shoreline in thick ice, turning this peaceful alpine lake into a scene that feels strangely unreal. Masai Mara National Park, Kenya. Across the endless grassland, Masai Mara appears like a giant arena of survival, where each migration season turns the plains into a moving sea of life and death. In the local language, the name of this land suggests something spotted like the plain seen from above, with cloud shadows, low trees, and millions of dark dots from the herds. This harsh cycle still feeds the land because more than 441 tonnes of animal dung each day enriches the soil and helps the grassland grow back after the massive herds pass. The open land changes colour with the seasons, from fresh green after rain to burning gold in the dry months, creating a wide stage for high-speed hunts. The greatest danger waits in the muddy rivers, where crocodiles up to 20 feet long and weighing over 2,205 pounds lie in wait as panicked herds rush into the water to cross. The Badab-e Terraces, Iran. At an elevation of 6,037 feet, Badab-e spreads across the hillside like a river of stone lava, with orange-red steps glowing in the empty landscape. The name Badab means carbonated water, a reminder that this strange beauty begins with bubbling mineral springs rising from deep underground. As water gathers on the smooth terraces, hundreds of small pools become natural mirrors, reflecting the sky and making the hillside shine brightest at sunset. Few people know that the travertine layers here began forming during ancient geological periods as minerals slowly settled and hardened into enormous natural steps. This process is still supported by very different springs, including one with extremely salty water and another coloured orange-red by large amounts of iron oxide. Azores Islands, Portugal. Rising from the North Atlantic, this archipelago feels like a green volcanic paradise, where the deep sea and underground heat create an important shelter for whales. Once a harsh, whaling centre in the 19th century, this place has turned toward conservation, changing its hunting past into an effort to protect the giants of the ocean. The coast does not have calm, white sand beaches, but steep black cliffs hundreds of feet high, constantly torn by huge Atlantic waves day and night. Hidden under the green grass are 26 active volcanic systems, with many cracks releasing hot steam and sulfur gas as if Earth was still breathing. Only a few miles from shore, the seafloor can drop more than 9,840 feet, creating deep water for whales and making the ocean around the islands feel especially mysterious. British Columbia, Canada. Along the west coast of North America, this place feels like a wild fortress where Pacific waves crash into mountains once carved by glaciers into depths of more than 1,968 feet. Across this vast land, grizzly bears and cougars still move through many forests, reminding visitors that humans are only a small part of wild nature. Within only a few dozen miles, high mountains can block moisture from the ocean, suddenly turning lush green forest into dry, semi-desert land. Thousands of rivers and blue glacier lakes cut through this province, carrying meltwater from snowy mountains into valleys and creating living routes for salmon. In the wet coastal areas, thick temperate rainforests are covered in moss, with many ancient trees rising more than 197 feet, like the remains of a primitive world. Lagunas de Montebello National Park, Mexico. In the wet forests of southern Mexico, this place feels like a magical maze of lakes, where colours keep changing between limestone and thick green trees. When rainforest, ferns, and trees gripping the rock walls reflect on the still lake surface, the scene feels like a world forgotten by time. Under the ground, water is still slowly wearing away the limestone, causing some areas to collapse and form water pits more than 131 feet deep. In the most remote areas, many wild lakes are still not fully explored, making this place feel even more like a secret hidden by the forest and mountains. On the rock walls around the lakes, tall trees grip the stone with deep roots like claws, making the landscape feel peaceful, mysterious, and alive. Canary Islands, Spain. In the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa, this archipelago feels like land pushed from the sea by volcanic fire, where black rock, red soil, and blue ocean create a very unusual beauty. Beyond its overwhelming beauty, this archipelago is proof of nature's creative power, where the brightest life always rises strongly from the ashes of destruction. Once an important stop on ocean trade routes, this place formed a community with a unique cultural mix from Europe, Africa, and the Americas. The archipelago also has 4 national parks and 6 biosphere reserves, showing that its nature is not only beautiful but also very rare. The sea is so clear that it has become one of the ideal places for stargazing, where ocean darkness and volcanic height make the universe feel closer to the ground. Aletsch Glacier, Switzerland. Stretching through the Alps like a frozen river from another world, the largest glacier in Europe carries about 11 billion tonnes of ancient ice across the mountains. Deep inside the glacier, immense pressure compresses the ice so tightly that glowing blue light appears beneath the surface like illuminated water trapped underground. At nearly 2,953 feet thick, this enormous mass never truly stands still, slowly flowing down the valley while grinding rock into long dark debris lines across the white ice. Seen from above, those endless black stripes make the glacier look like a gigantic frozen highway cutting through the peaks of Switzerland. Yet despite its overwhelming scale, the glacier is shrinking every year as rising global temperatures slowly pull this unreal landscape back into bare stone and melting water. Lavaux Vineyards, Switzerland. Stretching 19 miles along the hillside, this agricultural wonder reveals surreal beauty as lush green silk ribbons cling tightly to the steep slopes. From above, thousands of terraces seem to tumble straight into water, 1,017 feet deep, creating a breathtaking optical illusion in the calm landscape. The scenery unfolds like a perfect three-layer stage, sparkling emerald water below, winding vineyards in the middle, and blinding snow-covered mountains piercing the sky. Among the endless greenstone walls hold heat at 86 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, acting like natural heaters that protect the vines through cold nights. As evening glow descends, the whole landscape turns fiery orange and pink, making Lavaux feel like a dream painted by sunset. Antalya Caves, Turkey. Beneath the dry, rocky mountains of Antalya, water has slowly cut deep into the earth for millions of years, opening a cold, dark cave world with huge stone chambers and emerald lakes. This place is not only overwhelming because of its geology, but also preserves traces of ancient humans from over 500,000 years ago, showing that darkness was once a shelter for survival. Across the cave ceiling, countless sharp stone points hang down like the teeth of a giant creature, while narrow cracks suddenly lead into vast underground spaces. The mountains outside are only like a thin shell, hiding thousands of layered karst voids, creating a complex and unpredictable underground stone maze. Deep on the cave walls, rough Stone Age carvings can still be seen, like fragile marks left by humans against the almost eternal silence of the dark. Limorne, Brabant, Mauritius. Rising 1,824 feet above the Indian Ocean, this massive rock is not only a natural fortress, but also a powerful symbol of the human desire for freedom. Recognised by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, this place reminds us that even when the human body can be imprisoned, the will for freedom can still rise beyond cliffs and deep water. Beyond its historical meaning, the sea around the mountain is famous for the underwater waterfall illusion, where sand and mud are pulled by currents into deep water as if falling into an abyss. Its steep, rough, and almost isolated basalt cliffs once turned this place into a final fortress of refuge for many enslaved people who escaped. From above, the sudden colour change between shallow turquoise water and the dark blue abyss tricks the eye, making the whole sea look as if it is collapsing beneath the mountain. Cathedral Gorge, State Park, United States. Standing alone in the Nevada desert, this wonder contains almost no hard rock and is instead built from giant masses of porous bentonite clay formed from ancient volcanic ash. Looking up from the canyon floor, the towering earth walls squeeze the view so tightly that the desert sky becomes a thin ribbon of light twisting overhead. To explore this landscape, visitors pass through a maze of narrow passages, some barely 2 feet wide, winding deep into the clay formations. Every storm and gust of wind slowly reshapes the soft walls, meaning the landscape is constantly being rewritten by nature. Over time, that erosion has carved spires, hidden corridors, and soaring formations that resemble the architecture of a forgotten Gothic city. Deep inside the crevices, the porous clay absorbs most sounds, creating such unusual silence that even a heartbeat can seem louder than the desert beyond. Giolla Lagoon, Greece. Perched at the cliff edge, this sedimentary rock sinkhole looks like a natural infinity pool, glowing in brilliant emerald blue. Across one thin rock barrier, the calm water creates a sharp visual clash with the rolling cobalt ocean outside. Trapped inside a sun-warmed rock basin, the water is often 9 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the open sea, making the pool feel strangely gentle and separate from the waves. Around the lagoon, jagged rock layers rise like a rough semicircular amphitheatre shaped by the sea. Its clarity is renewed when waves higher than 7 feet crash over the narrow rock wall, pulling old water out and bringing fresh seawater in. Yet the surreal beauty still demands caution, because the exposed rock can become extremely hot and slippery under the midday sun. Skara Lake National Park, Montenegro, and Albania. Breathing like a great living creature, this emerald lake expands up to 205 square miles, hiding sinkholes that drop 197 feet beneath the surface. In autumn, the vegetation turns into a sea of blazing orange, reflecting on the still water like a giant mirror between earth and sky. From steep mountain passes, the Great Horseshoe Bend embracing deep green hills looks breathtakingly beautiful, like a divine landscape model. Hidden along the shore are secret pebble beaches reachable only by water, where travellers can float in clear lake water beneath towering limestone cliffs. As evening light turns the twilight purple, the deep silence of nature transforms this lake region into a peaceful sanctuary that washes away the noise of city life. Fiordland National Park, New Zealand. This place has unbelievably steep terrain, where sky-high granite cliffs drop straight into deep black water, and sunlight almost never reaches the bottom. Around that dark water, dense temperate rainforest covers the land, with ancient ferns and green moss covering the rocks, making the whole area look like it is wearing a quiet green velvet coat. Endless rain creates a layer of fresh water over the salty surface, blocking sunlight from passing through and making the fjord look black like ink. Covering about 3 million acres, it is the largest national park in New Zealand, where many areas still feel untouched because the terrain is so rugged and hard to reach. After each heavy rain, hundreds of temporary waterfalls appear on the cliffs, turning the landscape into a living world of mist, rainforest, and falling water. Isle of Skye, Scotland. In the cold waters of Scotland, Isle of Skye feels like a wild piece of another planet stretching about 50 miles, where nature shows its power through rock, wind, and rough landforms. Offshore, cliffs more than 1,000 feet high drop straight into the sea, where powerful waves hit the rock base and throw up giant white columns of foam. When strong ocean winds blow upward along the cliffs, waterfalls can be pushed into the air, creating a scene where water seems to flow backward. Mist often moves low across the mountain slopes, making parts of the island disappear, then return again like a cold, mythical scene. With average rainfall of more than 80 inches each year, the weather here can change like 4 seasons in 1 hour, making Isle of Skye feel alive and unpredictable. Brúarfoss, Iceland. Famous for its unreal glowing blue colour, this waterfall looks less like flowing water and more like a crack of liquid light cutting through Iceland's black volcanic landscape. The icy stream, measuring only 36 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, rushes through a narrow channel where compressed currents explode into white turbulence between dark rocks. Even without massive height, the waterfall creates a surreal illusion as the glowing blue water twists violently through a crack only 10 feet wide. According to legend, a natural stone bridge once crossed above the river, but it was destroyed centuries ago to stop beggars from passing through the area. Most astonishing of all, the colour of Brúarfoss constantly changes with the seasons, becoming cloudy during warmer months before turning crystal clear, like a sapphire in the freezing Icelandic winter. Los Angeles Aqueduct, USA. Acting like a giant artificial river across the desert. This enormous system pulls snowmelt from mountain ranges thousands of feet high and carries it toward one of the world's largest cities. Crossing landscapes that can reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit, the water disappears into dark steel pipes nearly 10 feet wide, creating a surreal contrast between freezing mountain runoff and burning desert heat. Twice. Across its 410-mile journey, the entire flow moves almost completely by gravity alone, racing through the system day and night without relying on major engines. The project became so controversial in the 1920s that angry farmers dynamited sections of the aqueduct during conflicts over disappearing water supplies. Even today, the most unreal sight is the contrast it created. A giant green metropolis rising from redirected water while parts of the original landscape slowly turned into dry, white dust fields. Diamond Beach, Iceland. Famous as a surreal, natural art gallery, this beach is covered with ice blocks. broken from ancient glaciers that may be hundreds or even thousands of years old. In only a few seconds, powerful sneaker waves can rush deep across the shore, pushing heavy ice pieces over the black sand and turning the beautiful scene unexpectedly dangerous. Scattered across thick black basalt sand, compressed ice with fewer air bubbles can glow in magical shades of blue when sunlight passes through its dense frozen layers. If you listen closely, the melting ice can crackle softly as trapped ancient air slowly escapes, making the beach feel alive inside the cold silence. Under sunset light, these natural diamonds bend and reflect the sun into orange, gold, and icy blue flashes, turning the shoreline into a glowing field of fire, glass, and black volcanic sand at a truly of Alberobello, Italy. Viewed from above, this strange town of stone cone houses looks like a giant field of mushrooms, frozen in time across the hills of southern Italy. According to local stories, the unusual design once helped residents quickly dismantle their homes whenever tax inspectors arrived in the region. Behind the bright white lime-coated walls is a clever survival system, where thick stone keeps the interiors cool while hidden cisterns collect precious rainwater beneath the houses. The cone roofs are built entirely from dry stacked limestone, balanced so carefully that removing keystones near the top could partially collapse the structure within minutes. At night, the narrow glowing alleys and mysterious white symbols painted on the grey domes make Alberobello feel less like a normal town and more like an unreal stone labyrinth from another age. Big R Waterfall, Romania. Hidden like a silent crying rock deep inside the forest, this natural wonder does not roar violently, but gently releases water through its porous, moss-covered surface. Each stream slips through tiny green crevices before falling into countless sparkling droplets that spread around the rock like a crystal veil. Local legends say the mossy curtain was formed from the hair of a young woman transformed into a waterfall of tears to remain beside the one she loved forever. Beyond its fairy tale appearance, the waterfall also lies near the 45th parallel north, close to the halfway point between the equator and the North Pole. Yet after centuries of limestone slowly building up beneath the flowing water, the famous overhanging shape finally collapsed in 2021 under the weight of its own beauty. Seongsan Ilcholbong, South Korea. Rising from the sea like a stone crown, Seongsan Ilcholbong is surrounded by 99 sharp rock peaks, making this volcanic crater look as if it is wearing the white waves. Because it preserves an almost complete volcanic tough cone shape, this place was recognised by UNESCO as a World Natural Heritage Site in 2007. Yet behind its beauty lies a heavy past. When the cliffs were carved into 18 caves to hide suicide boats during World War II and later became linked to painful historical events. This wonder formed more than 5,000 years ago when underwater magma met cold seawater, causing a violent eruption that built a dry crater covering about 20 acres. The contrast between black cliffs, the green crater, and the deep ocean makes Seongsan Ilcholbong look like a giant emerald surrounded by the sea. The Zhao Snow Monsters, Japan. Every winter, trees on the mountainside are swallowed by ice and snow, then transformed into a giant white army standing motionless in the freezing wind. Although this frozen army looks majestic and frightening, it is slowly weakening as warmer temperatures and bark beetles damage the fir trees needed to form Juhyo. When night falls, colourful lights shine onto the twisted ice shapes, making the whole mountain look like a ghostly stage where giant shadows move in silence. This strange phenomenon forms when icy winds carry supercooled water droplets into tree branches, where they freeze instantly and gather under more layers of snow. In temperatures around 14 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, each tree is shaped differently by wind and snowstorms, creating thousands of snow monsters with no two looking the same. Lanzarote Volcanic Park, Spain. Shaped like a landscape after the end of the world, this red and black land was born from eruptions lasting nearly 6 years, from 1730 to 1736, when lava almost erased every trace of green from the ground. To preserve this place, often compared to Mars on Earth, visitors are not allowed to freely step onto the fragile ash and volcanic rocks that have remained for centuries. The heat still sleeping beneath the surface is now used at a remarkable restaurant where food is grilled directly by natural volcanic heat rising from below. According to local legend, during the ancient disaster, people placed a cross before the advancing lava, and the river of fire suddenly stopped before destroying the last surviving land. Even today, this hidden heat is revealed when dry grass dropped into a hole can catch fire, while water poured into the ground immediately erupts as a column of steam. Chocolate Hills, Philippines. Every dry season, Chocolate Hills becomes a sea of dark brown mounds stretching toward the horizon, making the landscape look like thousands of giant chocolate pieces placed in nature. Beyond the legend that they are the stone tears of a giant who lost the one he loved, these hills now appear on the official seal and flag of the local government. Beneath the soft grass lies limestone slowly dissolved by mildly acidic rainwater over millions of years, gradually carving the ground into unusually smooth, rounded domes. Some records count as many as 1,776 hills packed closely across about 19 square miles, creating a rare density when viewed from above. On their slopes, mostly grasses can survive in the thin soil, while larger trees grow on the lower ground, allowing every curved hilltop to remain clearly visible. Green Lake, Austria. Escaping the definition of permanent lake, this surreal place is originally a dry valley that can be swallowed by 39 feet of meltwater every spring. As the water rises, benches, paths, grass and bushes sink below the surface, turning a normal park into a silent underwater landscape. To protect its remarkable clarity, diving was banned so the fragile bottom sediment would not be disturbed. Even under bright summer sun, the water stays between 39 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit, with visibility reaching up to 164 feet. That cold, transparent water acts like a natural glass window, making the sunken park appear sharper, closer, and strangely unreal. By July, the water slowly drains back into underground cracks, returning the dry ground and leaving behind the memory of a lake that lives only for a few months each year. Pink Sand Beach, Harbour Island, Bahamas. This soft pink beach is actually made from the crushed remains of countless tiny single-celled organisms mixed with bright white sand over time. Because the shell fragments are extremely delicate, heavy tourism can disturb the fragile balance that gives the beach its unusual colour. Offshore coral reefs help calm the waves, creating a mirror-like sea surface where the pink band changes with tide, moisture and sunlight. The balance between red-pink calcium fragments and white quartz sand creates a natural colour that feels both gentle and surreal. Even in hot weather, the pale quartz sand reflects much of the sunlight, helping the beach feel cooler underfoot than darker shores. More than a beautiful shoreline, this place is a living connection between coral reefs, tiny marine organisms, waves, and the soft colour they leave behind. Caves of Agtilek Karst, Hungary. Hidden underground, this 16-mile limestone labyrinth feels like a time machine holding traces of a tropical ocean from 220 million years ago. Groundwater slowly carved the rock into vast chambers where the temperature stays near 50 degrees Fahrenheit all year. Mineral-stained cave walls and cold mirror lakes create upside-down reflections that make the underground world look strangely unreal. The clean, humid air has made parts of this cave system known for speleotherapy, where the underground climate is used to support respiratory health. Over thousands of years, patient dripping has built fossil-like waterfalls, stone curtains, and hanging stalactite towers rising up to 66 feet. Although they look solid, these formations are extremely delicate because oil and sweat from human touch can stain the surface and disturb growth shaped over thousands of years. Fiordo di Furore, Italy. Like a majestic rift hidden from the open sea, this deep gorge is crowned by a stone arch bridge suspended 98 feet above the water. Far below, the wild pebble beach, less than 82 feet wide, echoes with rolling waves while staying distant from the noise of the modern world. On misty days, the stone bridge seems to dissolve into the haze, opening like a magical gate into a distant dream. When midday sunlight slips between the cliffs, the dark water suddenly awakens, glowing in brilliant turquoise like countless diamonds. In the heat of summer, the giant shadows of the limestone cliffs wrap the whole space, turning it into a cool, quiet, and breathtaking oasis. Tumpak Sewu, Indonesia. Rising from a deep, volcanic fissure, countless white streams crash violently into a giant semicircular canyon nearly 394 feet deep. Descending toward the abyss by fragile bamboo ladders hidden inside freezing mist, travellers experience a breathtaking feeling of danger, freedom, and isolation from the outside world. From the towering cliff edge, the bottom of the gorge often disappears beneath rolling spray, making the waterfall feel like a bottomless hole opening into the earth. Deep below, pure currents merge into a crystal clear river that shines like liquid metal as it cuts through dark volcanic rocks beneath the jungle shadows. At sunrise, the entire waterfall system becomes even more epic beneath the silhouette of a smoking volcano rising 12,060 feet into the sky, turning Tumpak Sewu into a raw and breathtaking world of water, stone, and mist. Bonifacio, Francois. Perched at the edge of the world, this ancient city rises 230 feet above the sea on brilliant white limestone cliffs, appearing like a mirage suspended between sky and water. The scenery reaches its most breathtaking moment at twilight, when the cold stone walls absorb the final sunlight and glow peach pink against a horizon slowly fading into deep purple. Beneath that dramatic beauty, the ocean has split the land with a massive 1-mile inlet, creating a calm, natural harbour hidden safely inside the restless Mediterranean waves. Deep below the cliffs, sunlight passes through crystal clear water and illuminates sea caves in glowing turquoise colours, turning the dark underground chambers into a dreamlike world of light. Standing before a city that the sea continues to carve away day after day, travellers are left with a rare feeling of awe, where history, nature, and silence seem to drift together above the salty foam. The Catatumbo Lightning Delta, Venezuela. Instead of sinking into darkness, the sky above Catatumbo repeatedly bursts into fierce flashes of lightning, creating the world's most famous eternal storm. Yet in 2010, the seemingly endless display fell silent for several weeks during a drought, making local people fear that the wonder might disappear forever. Its frightening but brilliant power became a source of local pride, with the lightning symbol displayed on the region's official flag and coat of arms. The storm begins when warm moisture rises and meets winds, pushed upward by surrounding mountains, forming electrically charged clouds that return again and again at night. During its most intense moments, lightning can flash about 28 times each minute for hours, suddenly turning the darkness as bright as day. The Eisriesenwelt frozen labyrinth, Austria. For centuries, the roaring cold wind from its dark entrance terrified local people and made them believe this cave was a gateway leading straight to hell. Today, to enter this frozen world, visitors must still climb about 1,400 steps through darkness and temperatures often below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Although the cave system stretches more than 26 miles, ice is concentrated within only the first 6/10 of a mile, where cold air near the entrance quickly freezes melting snow. Few people know that the cave entrance stands at about 5,384 feet, while the entire maze works like a natural chimney, blowing icy air outward even in summer. Deep in the darkness, about 1,059,000 cubic feet of lasting ice has gathered into enormous frozen walls and masses, making the name World of the Ice Giants feel completely deserved. The Saint-Marcel d'Ardèche Cave, France. Accidentally revealed in 1836 when a hunter's ferret chased a rabbit into a rocky opening, Saint-Marcel d'Ardèche turned out to be an underground maze stretching up to 37 miles and hiding extraordinary stepped limestone pools. Although visitors are allowed inside, most of this underground world still lies beyond the public route, like a deep, dark realm that only professional cave explorers can enter. In its most famous area, clear water rests quietly on each stone step, reflecting the cave ceiling and hanging formations until it becomes hard to tell real rock from its image below. These terraced pools formed extremely slowly as mineral-rich water dripped through the cave and left behind thin layers of stone over a very long time. The cave stays near 57 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year, creating ideal conditions for part of the underground sphere to be used for aging wine. Eternal Flame Falls, USA. Hidden behind a 30-foot curtain of water, a small orange flame still flickers inside a dark, rocky hollow, making eternal flamefalls seem like a place where water and fire secretly challenge each other in nature. Yet the name Eternal Flame does not mean the fire can never die, because heavy water or strong wind can still put it out, leaving people to light it again. In winter, ice forming around the rock walls makes the flame inside appear like a glowing ember locked inside a cold crystal cage. More surprisingly, the gas feeding this fire does not contain only methane, but also unusually high amounts of ethane and propane compared with many other natural gas seeps. Geologists also found that the rock layer producing this gas is not as hot as normally expected, leaving the origin of the flame as a scientific mystery behind its surreal beauty. Chott El Djerid, Tunisia. Spreading across about 2,703 square miles in the dry heat of Tunisia, Chott El Djerid looks like the white remains of an ancient lake, where summer temperatures can reach 122 degrees Fahrenheit. During cooler months, shallow water can still cover parts of the surface, but when the intense heat returns, it quickly evaporates and reveals a cracked salt plain stretching toward the horizon. Even in the few pools of extremely salty water that remain, salt-loving microorganisms can survive, showing that life still quietly holds on in a land that appears almost dead. Yet the white salt surface that looks firm underfoot, Itruos, may hide soft mud below, making any journey away from a safe route dangerous. The fierce heat also bends light above the dry lake bed, creating shining false lakes on the horizon, as if the desert were using its own beauty to deceive the human eye. Puzzlewood, United Kingdom. Far beyond a regular woodland, this place is an ancient mining landscape buried inside rare temperate rainforest, an ecosystem covering less than 1% of Earth's land, was chum. The rugged rock beneath your feet is a remnant of an ancient ocean floor formed from crushed marine shells more than 300 million years ago. Thick moss wraps the rocks like a natural sound blanket, softening footsteps and making the forest feel strangely silent. A 1-mile stone path winds through the maze, often covered in dim blue light that makes the forest look trapped in endless twilight. Because soil is scarce among the boulders, trees stretch crawling roots across the stone, searching for places to grip and survive. On some dark rocks, red stains appear where iron-rich water seeps through the stone, adding to the feeling that this forest belongs to a world between geology and fantasy. Tesua Ocean Trench, Samoa. Far beyond the idea of a normal lake, this volcanic skylight looks like a hollowed out 10-story building dropped 100 feet into the ground. Standing near the edge, you can feel the cool air rising from the water below, while the whole space becomes strangely quiet. Surprisingly, this wonder is not a public government site, but private land preserved by a local family for generations. Thanks to an underground lava tube connected to the ocean, this inland pool still rises and falls with the Pacific tide. To reach the water, visitors must climb down a steep, handmade wooden ladder about 100 feet long between walls of green vines. The whole swimming experience changes with the pull of the moon, as the tide can transform the pool from a deep, emerald chamber into a shallow volcanic basin. Yata Grotto, Lebanon. Stretching nearly 6 miles underground, this wonder began as solid limestone slowly hollowed out by slightly acidic rainwater over millions of years. The surreal space is filled with translucent stone curtains and countless stalagmites rising like a giant underground mushroom forest. Its greatest highlight is a 27-foot stalactite hanging like a stone sword, patiently shaped by mineral-rich drops over an immense span of time. At the bottom, a silent underground river reflects the cave ceiling and acts as a vital freshwater vein for more than 1.5 million people. During the Civil War, the grotto was closed for years, and parts of the cave area were used for military storage because of its protected underground setting. Despite looking solid, the formations are extremely fragile because oil from a single touch can stain the surface and disturb growth that took thousands of years. Poas volcano, Costa Rica, carrying acidity as strong as a car battery. This crater is a giant basin nearly 1 mile wide and almost 1,000 feet deep. The constant release of volcanic gases often wraps the lake in drifting white clouds, making the landscape appear and disappear like a scene from another planet. Around the rim, harsh conditions have twisted and stunted the vegetation, creating a strange contrast between green forest and the pale crater below. Heat rising from magma can push the lake temperature from 68 to 194 degrees Fahrenheit, causing the surface to steam and shift in colour. Sulphur-stained ground, acid mist and grey-green water combine to create a landscape that looks more like a distant world than a place on Earth. This unusual environment has become a natural laboratory, helping scientists study how life might survive in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. Monfragüe National Park, Spain. Spanning over 44,000 acres, this green heart works like a living genetic vault, protecting Mediterranean plant life that has vanished from many parts of Europe. Along the open woodland, ancient oak trees show stripped bark and deep red cores, revealing a traditional cork harvesting method that lets the trees keep living. The landscape carries a striking contrast, with dry sunlit slopes standing beside darker, cooler, moss-covered forest patches. Fast-flowing rivers cut through 400-million-year-old quartzite mountains, carving deep canyons into the hard stone. Hidden inside these rugged rock walls are many caves, some preserving ancient rock paintings that reveal human life from thousands of years ago. At night, the almost unpolluted sky reveals the Milky Way so clearly that the whole wilderness seems covered by a dome of stars. Scotian Caves, Slovenia. Entering this underground kingdom, you feel incredibly small before a cave chamber of more than 77 million cubic feet, large enough to hold the Great Pyramid of Giza. Near the red flowstone walls above the abyss, thousands of ancient objects were found, suggesting that people treated this dark place as a sacred world more than 3,000 years ago. A narrow bridge crosses the void about 164 feet above the river, where the roar from below makes the darkness feel alive. During heavy rains, the underground river can rise by more than 328 feet, briefly transforming the cave from a silent cathedral into a hidden flood world. In the late 19th century, early explorers descended into the deep Black Canyon with simple ladders and ropes, revealing a landscape that looked almost too vast to belong beneath the hills. That mix of ancient traces, echoing water, and impossible scale makes Scotian feel less like a cave and more like a lost underground civilization carved by nature. The Giants Playground, Namibia. Situated within the barren Namibian desert, the Giants Playground appears as a bizarre stone labyrinth where massive columns lie scattered in an artful, chaotic display. A temperature swing of up to 54 degrees Fahrenheit between day and night acts like a master sculptor, continuously polishing the pillars over time. These rocks are cloaked in vibrant orange lichen, creating a striking visual contrast against the cold grey stone beneath the harsh sun. The origin of this surreal landscape dates back to molten magma eruptions 160 to 180 million years ago, which later cooled and fractured. The most incredible aspect is the massive boulders weighing up to tens of thousands of pounds stacked precariously, challenging all human architectural laws. An absolute, profound silence blankets the area, forcing those who arrive to contemplate their own smallness against the relentless passage of time. Lightrabjar Cliffs, Iceland. Rising up to 1,444 feet above the ocean, these majestic cliffs feel like a surreal edge where Europe visually ends, but the rock belongs to the North American tectonic plate. The landscape is often swallowed by wind and the cries of countless seabirds, creating a living wall of sound above the sea. Dark rock faces are streaked with bright white guano, making the cliff look painted by the millions of birds that return here each breeding season. Stretching for 9 miles without protective barriers, the cliff edge can be deceptive because grass and soil may hide fragile burrows beneath the surface. That unstable edge also becomes a vertical nesting city, where puffins and other seabirds occupy different layers between sky and ocean. The soft green grass, black rock, white birds, and endless sea combine into a place that feels less like a coastline and more like a living border between continents.